It's a great pleasure to be with you guys today. I arrived at Stellenbosch in mid-February 1968. It was a shabby hamlet then, and the university was a backwater. But what I discovered here, maybe because I came from a deep rural backwater, infinitely worse, was that I got to know and get to engage with people of real intellect and inspiring personality who redescribed the inside of my mind for my entire life. For our visitors by digital highway across the waters, even though a hamlet in a shabby little backwater at times, Stellenbosch University, right from its beginning, managed to attract both staff and students of incredible caliber. About half a mile from here, in the old Hoofgebou, which was then only half the size it was now, at the turn of the century, the entire university could fit into that building. From that building came a student who went on to Cambridge, and in the 600-year history of Cambridge University, including students like Isaac Newton, became the first to win a double first of the law tripos. He eventually went on to become Chancellor of Cambridge University. Basically, at the same time, there was another person, this is now more pertinent to what we are doing here today, who became the main architect of the old radio lamp with which all electronic devices were run before the advent of the transistor in 1948. His book, textbook on radio lamps, after a century, is still in print, and you can still get it off Amazon.com. He also had the decisive influence in the radio telephony transoceanic networks that were established in the 1920s. You saw all those beautiful charts yesterday of the undersea cables. A student from this university, when the entire university could still fit into one building, managed that. Talk about hope. That student came back to South Africa and single-handedly industrialized this country in 1930. In 1930, it was either Kenya or South Africa. The toss-up was between these two countries, which of them would become the powerhouse of Africa. Similar to in the 19th century, the toss-up was whether Argentina or the United States would become a powerhouse. And it's to one individual, single-handedly, industrializing South Africa in 1930, when Kenya stayed behind, which caused this country to become a powerhouse. His name, as you surely will know, Hendrik van der Bijl. So when I came to this hamlet, the shabby little town, at least there were these inspiring stories about who had studied and achieved right from the beginning of this university. And that's why I stand here today as a deeply grateful alumnus of Stellenbosch University. It is a great honor to be here. Secondly, I need to say 2 or 3 things about NASPERS, because our overseas people might not know the company. The email list for NASPERS comprises 17 people. The rest is admin staff. Market capitalization, $50 billion US. We're an investment and portfolio management company, basically investing and then managing electronic e-commerce, internet e-commerce platforms, and media platforms. I'm Chief Learning Officer for NASPERS, and my task, my mandate is very single-minded. It's Darwinian. See to it that the individuals in the group and the group as such remain adaptive and keep on reinventing themselves. So I'm speaking to you today about one kind of adaptation. The adaptation of education through technology. And we're going to look at the basics 30 minutes, 7 laws, and 3 questions. So let's start off with law number 1. And if you do not know law number 1, you shouldn't be in this room. And if you're listening and you don't know law number 1, please tune out because the whole rest of the presentation is wasted on you. Law number 1 is that the processing power becomes cheaper by the year at 30%. It's Moore's law. We all know Moore's law, but we do not understand the implications of Moore's law. Stuff processing power becomes cheaper by 30% per year. That means by 97% in a decade. Look at this. Processing power that you paid in today's money, $100 10 years ago, is now only $3. Never before in the history of the world had prices dropped so dramatically. Technology mostly has the effect to have prices come down. We are bewitched by nominal prices, which are inflation inflated, so that we do not understand properly that in real terms stuff gets cheaper. In 1800, by a wicker candle, the average worker had to, if he had worked 1 hour, he could purchase only 10 minutes of artificial reading light. Today, with our condensed incandescent lamp, 1 hour of work, the average worker buys 300 days of artificial reading light. Look at this one. In 1972, the cost of memory then, if they had to manufacture an iPhone, the cost would have been $128 million US. Maybe the American military could afford. But now here's the rub, as the Bard of Stratford said. What must we deduce from the following? Look at that. I can select any number of graphs like that that tell you that relative to the consumer price index, median family income, medical care, and college tuition fees are way up there. Now, in the light of what I've said about technology pushing prices down, about this dramatic fall in prices of processing power, why do you think that happens? If we look at a phenomenon like that, what is one thing that we can deduce from that? Facts that I gave you and that chart. Come on, anybody want to guess? Oh, you're now all shy, blushing wallflowers. Let me give it to you. Clearly, one should ask, or one should deduce, that digital technology at least has not taken hold enough of tertiary education. You cannot have prices dropping at 30% a year, 97% in a decade, and then that thing happens. Cannot. So if you go, and you must have all partaken in this kind of a discussion on why are prices going up, because clearly that is something that is, I mean, why would we pay more college tuition fees than open heart surgery? I mean, that's basically what it boils down to per unit. But that's obviously the wrong question to ask. What would be the right question to ask? The right question to ask would be, why doesn't the cost of tertiary education go down? That's the right question to ask. But the situation gets even worse. If digital technology drives prices down by 30% per year, 97% over a decade, worst is still to come. Because cheaper, zero price, zero cost. That is one of the effects of the digital revolution. So let's take at one small part, now only offering 3% globally of the NASPERS profit, the print newspaper industry. Classifieds supplied, prior to the internet, 32% of the profits of newspapers. Nice. I mean, how difficult is it to paste that kind of an ad in a newspaper? You will note that it's not the high-flown ideals, you know, the critics of society, the editorials, none of that stuff that brought the bacon in. It was something as menial as that. And then one guy pops up, Clive Newark, and he offers the classified ads for zero. That man single-handedly is responsible for having the print newspaper industry being in the dire straits it is now. There are, of course, other examples. Just think of Garmin and TomTom. You spent all this money in creating these sat-nav systems. And up pops Google and say, you know what? You can get it for free. And in your hearts of hearts, you might think, these ogres of capitalism, you know, killing these businesses. But, well, will you again fork out money for a TomTom? No, you won't. You've got maps for free. So this is the world in which we compete, where it's not just a price war, can we offer at a better price, that price relationship. We compete against people who ask zero. Cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. So that's law one. Moore's law. Prices are driven down by technology at the speed of gravity. Now we get to law two. Law two says the privilege of the few becomes the opportunity of the many. With a camera, everybody becomes a portrait painter. The flip side of that, of course, is that you realize that before 1850, with the invention of photography, only the very richest people knew how their ancestors looked like who died before they were born. Only the richest people could afford portrait painters. Now, the privilege of the few has become the opportunity of the many. But then, of course, we still had a couple of individuals, privileged individuals, being photographers. Kodak came with their box camera, and suddenly the privilege of the few photographers become the privilege of the many. But yet the story is not completed. When I was a young boy, I bought my own developing chemicals. We lived in a house with only one bathroom. So when I wanted to develop as a 10, 11-year-old schoolboy my photographs, everybody was prohibited from going to the bathroom. I had a yellow light in my room. I was the only boy in my entire primary school who did that kind of a thing. And when I reached high school, I think there was one other boy. But I can still remember the days when to develop photographs, that was the process. In Pretoria, you took it to the pharmacist. Some pharmacists developed it themselves. They could actually there was a time when pharmacists actually could do chemistry. You wouldn't believe it, they actually could do chemistry. And if you wanted color photographs, it was sent away. The privilege of the few becomes the opportunity of the many. Now everybody is a printer. And this democratizing effect of technology is one of its most powerful features that often get neglected in our discussions. Well, then we get to law 3. It will become mobile. Look at how photography started off. Can you guys see that American presidential candidate with that funny little thing behind his head? That was to clamp his head dead still because it took more than an hour to actually make the exposure. But this is now a trend in all technology. It goes from go to and suddenly everywhere and with me. When I was a young man growing up in South Africa, and we watched American movies, it was a curious thing that when they spoke over the telephone, their telephones had long cables. They could walk around and speak over the telephone. Whereas for some unfathomable reason, the South African telecom said that the cable will be this short and you will sit like this and talk. Look where we are, people. It will go mobile. You cannot stop that. Law 4. What is unique? Like this beautiful medieval hand-painted and written manuscript can be copied. In living memory, that is to say, my memory. The then Carnegie Library in my second year in Stellenbosch University got a Xerox copying machine, and my eyes lit up. It changed my class-going habits. Because now, for the price of my charming personality and a smile to the most studious, mousy girl in the front desk of the class, I could get her notes and have it photocopied. It changed my university life. I am the social person I am today because of Xerox. So now we get to law 5. What was manual becomes automatic. This is so obvious, but I just mention it for completeness sake. No. We sat with a dictionary, and then there's a spell checker. No need to go on about this. This is the obvious one, but it must be stated. But the result of this is so important, and that is everything gets faster, 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 faster. The rate of adoption of technology gets faster, faster, faster. Bill Raditzel, the ex-Harvard economics professor, ex-financial chief officer of Sun Microsystems, and the ex-information officer of A.L. Warner, tells me the experiment he saw recently. You know, you see these movies with the divorced couple, but they don't know where the dog will go. So they each stand there and say, come to me, come to me. Now what the guys did, the experiment was with the mother and an iPad. So mother stands here, iPad is there. The 2.5-year-old is there. The mothers lost out completely. Bill says he saw the video of the experiment. The mothers went out crying in despair. 2.5-year-old babies chose iPads before they chose their mothers. The rate of it just gets faster, faster, faster. And now I throw a thought in. How long does it take you to write a textbook? What's the average? How long? Okay, I rest my case. Law 6. Distribution gets disrupted. And this is the one thing that we often forget about digital technologies. It is the distribution process that gets disrupted that changes the entire game. In the old days of newspapers, there was this factory. So you literally manufactured a newspaper with industrial revolution type technology. And then you had to get it to the various points, vending points, with lorries or by train. And in the end, obviously, on a little guy on his bicycle. And we had control of the scoop. And newspapers had to get enough advertising to cover the cost of the distribution and manufacturing. Not the cost of the news gathering, the cost of the distribution and of the manufacturing. And this little boy on his bicycle shouting scoop, on one good morning, gets superseded by the new scoop. Where distribution cost is close to zero, where the manufacturing costs close to zero, which is instantaneously call up a network. This has got dire implications for the academic industry. I just had to fake one formula. Is that okay? I just had to fake one. It looks intellectual, doesn't it? The ability to copy. Remember our third law. plus the ability to distribute at close to zero cost, plus the falling cost of storing information, can you see the tsunami coming? Leads to the destruction of the time value of IP. You think your IP is valuable. People, it's dropping by the day. Let me give you one example I recently had. I did, back in those days at Stellenbosch University, an honors course, one class a week throughout the year, in medieval Dutch. How many people here did a course in medieval Dutch? No! Funny, huh? Perhaps some of the guys listening in or viewing us did a course in medieval Dutch. So 2 years ago, I'm asked to work on an Afrikaans cultural project. And part of this project is that I've got to translate a couple of lines of a medieval Dutch poem in Afrikaans. And there's just one word that I was not quite sure of. So now I sit there. How many people do you think are left in South Africa that have done a course in medieval Dutch, let alone being an authority in medieval Dutch? Well, just take the offhand chance. I type the 2 lines in and the translation comes up. Can you imagine, there's somewhere in South Africa, there are 2 or 3 people who did more than 1 year in medieval Dutch, who thought that their knowledge was extremely precious and valuable. 0. 0. Precious knowledge, not as valuable as you thought. So in print media, that's what happened to print media. We lost the scoop to Twitter. We lost classified advertising, 32% of our revenue. And news has become a commodity. Any one of you want to enter the industry? Oh, you of little faith. Okay, so this brings us now to law 7. Individual choice rules. Forget the days of vinyl, let's just go to CDs. So Shakira comes with the latest CD. I see a couple of grey heads here. Wouldn't know what your taste would be, but let's stay with Shakira, it's shapely. So there's this one smashing hit, but you've got to buy the damn whole CD, all the other mediocre ones. It's like studying for an MBA. It's like studying for an MBA. There's one guy at the business school in Stellenbosch University who does not talk me to sleep, and with whom I can catch a glimmer of inspiration. But I've got to take the 6 other guys who barely prevent me from falling asleep, and the absolute duds, the other 3. Why should I buy the CD? Because individual choice rules, and it's the era of the playlist. So now we get to our 3 questions. You're not going to remember all 7 of the laws. Should I repeat them? Are you happy with them? But you'll now see how they apply. So what is the first question that you must ask when you want to transform an institution? The first question you must ask, who are the losers? Who are the losers? Now the answer to that should be very clear from the presentation, isn't it? We know who they are. The privileged few, the location bound, the unique, the manual, the slow, the expensive, those limiting choice. They become our natural prey when we start revamping, totally transforming organizations. This is the easy question, okay. The second question must be quite obvious after this one. Guess what's the second question? Who are they in your institutions? So instead of scouting for the latest technologies and stuff, you must first do an audit in your institution. Who are the privileged few? Who or what are the unique? The expensive, the slow. Who are those that are location bound? Who are they at your university? If you want to transform the institution, you do that audit and then you target those individuals, functions, posts, whatever they are, processes. This is how you find your way to a solution. But first you must ask yourself a very important question. Do you want to play at transformation? Or are you serious about it? If you are serious about it, then ask the following question. Over the next 10 years, how can we cut our staff by 50%? How can we, in 10 years, double our student numbers and drive cost to student down by 50%? If you're serious, that's the question that you would ask. Digital technologies are, per definition, software technologies. And Mark Andreessen, the inventor of Netscape, of whose end product we all now use to navigate the World Wide Web, now the name partner in Andreessen Horowitz Venture Capitalist, says, this wonderful metaphor, software eats the world. I think somebody from the medical sciences was seriously worried the other day whether our brains are going to gobbled up, but I'm quite sure you arrived in a car here, didn't you? Which, that didn't bother you so much, eh? Okay, but it's the software. The software actually gobbles us up. I'm just a fake academic, so I thought that I would go on, for the whole fake process and ask for a peer review. So I sent this off for a peer review. The answer I got was, no, 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 no. The classroom is already mobile. Cut 99% of your staff over the next 10 years and offer learning for free. Over the top? Yeah. But in a disruptive economy, and digital technologies creates a disruptive economy, you cannot optimize yourself into survival and success. You cannot tweak and play with the technologies. Oh, it would be nice if we could do this. And you know what? Blogs can also do. That's not how you're going to survive. You are living the same world that ate newspapers. You can't optimize yourself into success in a disruptive environment. Strategy 101. Thank you so much for your attention. I enjoyed it. On the dot, isn't it?
On the dot. Thank you so much for the wonderful, provocative talk, I think. I will allow one question from the audience or one comment. Anybody brave? Yes? Anybody
I suppose I'll get clobbered afterwards. Okay.
Okay, there's two quick comments, questions. I'm watching the time, but Raymond and then Dani.
Sorry? Well, I was the first person in South Africa to publish an e-book on Amazon.com Kindles. So you can go and search me.
There we go. That was a quick one. Dani, from your side.
All I want to say is he makes me feel like if I start to, I will fire myself first, and because I don't know how to solve the rest of the problems.
Great.
So I hope the workshop can contribute also to steer us into that
Absolutely.
inevitable process.
Absolutely. And I think that's where it's so provocative and you make us think about what are the next steps. And I
But
think
that's how organizations get transformed. That is how it actually happens. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Thank you, Bertie.
Thanks.
Okay, now we're going to go straight into the panel presentations. And I think we have our 3 panel discussants already in the room. Andrew, Casson and Marita Hilliges from the University of Dalarna in Sweden. Design just to make sure, JP, are they there? Travis? Oh, wonderful. Welcome, Andrew. Can you hear me? It's Antoinette speaking.
Yes, I can hear you, Antoinette. It's nice to hear from you again, to be with you.
Wonderful. Welcome. I'm just going to invite the rest of the panel also to the stage. And the rest of the panel is Marquis de Villiers. She's our Vice Dean at Tygerberg, at our health faculty, as well as Cecelia Christersson, who's the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Malmö University. So what we'll do is we'll go in the order, give each of you 15 minutes to do your presentation or your input, and then open up the discussion to the floor. So Andrew, I don't know if Marita's there with you, but Andrew, it's over to you then for your 15-minute input. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Antoinette, and once again, it's nice to be back. Marita, unfortunately, couldn't be with us, but she's worked together with me on the content of this presentation and sends her very, very best wishes to you all. I'm Andrew Casson. I'm Vice Rector of Dalarna University in Sweden, and just to give you a background, Dalarna University is a fairly modern university, 30-something years old, founded on the basis of a very old engineering college and a very old teacher education college. We have about 16,000 students today, of which more than half are part-time, and about 2/3, or almost 2/3, are in collaborative real-time e-learning. So, and that is quite a transformation. You met Stefan Rodheim yesterday, and Stefan told you a bit about the background to this and some of the tools that we're currently using. What I want to do is just take you quickly through some of the transformation processes that have led us to the situation where we are today. Of our 800 staff, about 640 are academics. This is obviously a bit different from the situation in many other countries where the proportions are sometimes the other way around. That means we have quite a few support staff. Of these, we're a learning-driven university, so 80% of our operation is learning, 20% is research, by the way. And we operate in a fairly sparsely populated region, which was also one of the basic conditions you need to keep in mind when we're talking about the transformation that we've been through. We've also had some fairly long traditions of widened access, moving towards new categories of students, and hopefully here you'll be able to see these points in summary very quickly. So what's happened at our university these last, well, 12 years? This is a 12-year process so far. What we've done is try to implement a process and a program that we've called Next Generation Learning. And Next Generation Learning is very firmly based in last generation learning. It's really fairly traditional in its aims. It's fairly traditional in its higher education aims of furthering independent, critical learning and thought through dialogue and collaboration. It's just that we've been wanting to harness all these digital resources that have been made accessible to us these last 10 or more years. So these last 7 years, we've done this through a specific program we've called the NGL, the Next Generation Learning Program, which has been fairly well financed. As it says here, $6 million a year at the peak of it. We're moving down from that at the moment, and it took a few years to get to that peak. This is comprised of a number of teacher and student development projects, 15 PhD students in a PhD school on technology-mediated knowledge processes. We've had a fairly high-level advisory board with people from across Europe taking part in well-known researchers and profiles. As Stefan mentioned yesterday, one of the reasons for the success so far, even though there have been problems, one of the major reasons for our success has been the level of support staffing we've had, support and development staffing, I should say. I think that's been essential in our process. Stefan mentioned, I think, a number of about 20 dedicated staff working together with students and teachers to provide the type of security that they need to be able to themselves carry out this transformation. We've also hosted so far 2 major international biannual conferences on the NGL theme, the Next Generation Learning theme, and people tell us that certainly in Sweden, in this particular area of collaboratory online learning, we are now well known as leaders and are very much visited by people coming to look at what we're doing. And you can see more of this on the on that link there. But change takes time, as I say, and this has really been something of a pincer movement, both bottom up and top down. I think that's fairly the brief way of describing it. We've tried to capture all the ideas and innovations from both the teachers and the learners. And the areas that have been most innovative in this, I think Stefan mentioned yesterday, the foreign languages department in our university, which really is unique in this country and probably in Europe, in teaching 10 or more foreign languages completely on the internet. Nursing has also been one of the pioneers, together with an e-business program and also teacher education. There's plenty to be said about these, but in the limited time I have at my disposal, I think you better probably ask Stefan, who'll be around for the rest of the day. So we've tried to harness the ideas and the innovations from below, but also this has meant providing very clear signals and a lot of sustained support from the top, obviously in the form of money, but also in the form of moral support and genuine leadership. The university board decided on a vision in 2009 for 2015 that we would be leaders in NGL, and that's the vision we're working towards. And we've had strong support from the 2 or 3 vice chancellors and boards that have been in place since 2004. But there's a problem in this. One of the balance problems that we saw was that if leadership and management get too enthusiastic about the ideas provided from below, the teachers and the teachers especially tend to feel that sort of management has kidnapped their ideas, and this was a problem for a while. It was difficult in some of the areas to keep this energy going, to keep the innovation going. If we're going to look at some problems that we've gone through in what has been quite a successful process, I think another one of them would be what I've called here trying to circumvent internal passivity. passive co-workers, and not least perhaps in some parts of the support organisation, have generally speaking been a problem. All weren't as enthusiastic. And if we look at our university organisation, I don't know whether you see this. There it is. Hopefully you'll be able to read it. We have 3 large schools of study and including a number of research areas. But what I wanted to show you here really is 2 things. One of them is that the IT service office, which is fairly traditional and was built up during the 1990s, really, in the traditional way to help administration with all the IT facilities that were necessary, wasn't really interested in developing what was needed. Not only was it not interested, it was fairly lukewarm towards the type of dedicated service attitude that was needed towards students and staff to be able to pull this thing off. So what we had to do was quite simply to develop a centre of its own. These 2, after 10 years, are now very much on speaking terms, but it has taken some time, and we may be looking towards some sort of integration between them within the near future. But this has been a problem. Another problem, as I said, has been keeping the innovative spirit going within the schools, amongst the teachers, and their collaboration with the support staff, and making sure that the support that we give in terms of time and development projects doesn't take over too much of their initiative. I think just a few rules of thumb for what we've been doing. Stefan has been the great advocate of keeping it simple and keeping it safe for everybody. No added extras. The fewer buttons, the better. And of course, real-time contact between teachers and learners. Synchronous is stimulating, I've written. I think that's probably one of the secrets of keeping people interested and keeping them going, the genuine real-time contact with students and between students as well. That's a secret of keeping them going. The support, I've already mentioned, and Stefan too, putting pedagogy first, not the technology. And there has been some problems of working hours, having staff working these long hours, but it's worked out very well thanks to a high degree of autonomy and self-organisation in that department. I think that's another very important thing. We don't need to manage them too much. They're fairly good at managing themselves if they have the right leadership and the right enthusiasm, which they often do, or always do, at least in that part of the organisation. We've also had a lot of support from the community, providing accessible higher education for people in the region. And having been on the cusp of a new technology, we were able to. It was a challenge to local investments in television solutions. When we went over to purely digital solutions, that was a challenge, but that's been overwon. It's taken about 4 or 5 years. And we also have had to develop in-house solutions, being first on the scene. Just briefly, I think we might mention also the national opposition to this digital revolution that's gone like a wave through our university. We had a lot of opposition from the ministry, both passive and active, but we do have and have had all the time support from the university board. And what we did was try ourselves to change opinion. Together with 2 other universities, we actually went with a firm of PR consultants and got the national press going and did a number of questionnaires with the MPs and got a lot of attention in the national media to the future of higher education. And this has worked fairly successfully. We didn't put much money into it, but it's been a very successful campaign to change opinion. So to end this short presentation then, I was asked to look in the crystal ball and see what's going to happen in the future. And the answer is, the future is where we started. I think very much. Collaborative real-time interaction. That's the future for us. Real-life hybrids, new learning spaces. And I'd just like to show you one of these learning spaces that was actually just finished, that we just got the keys to only yesterday, or last week rather. And if I can just find the right slide here, I'll be. What it is a physical learning space. We've just spent quite a few kroner on building a new library, and this library space is really the reverse of what we're doing on the internet, and it complements it so well that I just felt I had to show it to you. It's a fantastic space, very light, open and airy, and you can't really see it too well in this photograph, but along these shelves here, which are sort of half full of books at the moment, are screens that allow you to browse through the electronic resources, the same way as you can browse through the physical books. So what we want to do here is to create an attractive physical environment for our students to complement and complete the digital environment, so that we have a seamless environment between the digital world and the physical world. And just to round this off for you, I felt I should show you one of the new group rooms already being fully used in the library. We've got about 15 of these group rooms for self-study. We've christened them after some of our favourite partners. I don't think you can see the one on the left there is Stellenbosch. Okay, there's plenty more to be said about this, but that was a very brief presentation, a very brief attempt to try to give you some of the pointers in what's been going on here at Dalarna in this last decade or so.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand over now to Professor Marquis de Villiers, who's the Deputy Dean, Education, Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences. I'm going to give you this microphone, or you could stand over there, either or, whichever's going to be best. And I just, by chance, just realized now that if Marita also joined us, this panel would have consisted of health people in medicine. Professor de Villiers is from family medicine, Cecelia is in the dental profession, and of course Marita is a neuroscientist. So this was not planned, but it seems like transformation comes with that. This morning it was innovation with the engineers, so it's quite coincidental. Thanks, Marita.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Goedemiddag, Malmö. Thank you, Antoinette, for the invitation to speak here. You disrupted my long weekend. But it's indeed a privilege, and I just want to say that I am from the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, which is not on this campus. And to the previous speaker, first on the scene in my profession means you have to mop up the blood. So, in terms of medical education, our little innovation that I will share from you and the lessons learned is certainly a first on the scene for medical education in Africa. But it also meant that we were mopping up a lot of blood, so we had to learn a lot of lessons from that. So just briefly, I just have to give credit to our funders. We're part of the MEPI project, which is Medical Education Partnership Initiative in Africa, funded by US government. And the aim of this project is, and the word transformation has been used loosely in this forum, is to transform medical education in Africa in order to make a difference to the health of So, just a brief story. Second year medicine, the lecturer said, when students get to their clinical years, they have forgotten what they learned in their second year. They don't know the difference between bronchitis and bronchopneumonia. And frankly, I don't know the difference between that either. So second year traditionally is the most difficult year in medicine, even when I studied many years ago. Overloaded with knowledge, students' highest failure rate. So, what do we do? So when we got this funding, I appointed an IT person, and we talked in my office one day. Said, "Why don't we do podcast for the second year?" So that's what we did. We recorded, had the to speak with the microphone like this, recorded the slides. In the process called enhanced podcast. Now, some people of you will know much better than I what that means. So. There were quite resistance from the lecturers, so we trained a number of students in the class to actually take care of the technical things in the class, to wire up the lecturer, get the recording done, etc. So then at the end of 2012, we did a small informal survey of the students. How did they find that? You can see that 78% of them said they used the podcast. And then 88% said that all lectures must be podcasted. So there was overwhelming cry from the students that they wanted this to continue. When the program coordinator went to the second year class to speak about something else, they truly mobbed him almost and said, "We want these podcasts." Okay, so now overwhelmed by popular support, we continued. And then the next year we found a limitation. You're laughing. Our learning management system that we had at that time, once you have gone through a year and you pass to the next year, you're locked out. So you can't go back to the lectures. So we had to find another plan. And then we developed a CMS, a content management system. I'm sure, again, you would know better what a content management system can do, but it's, in fact, as I understand it, a very organized, structured filing system that you can retrieve all these files from it. So then last year we continued, that was 2013, with, in fact, the rest of the curriculum. It's a 6-year curriculum. There are 35 modules, about over 2,000 lectures in the course. And at the moment now we have 2,500 lectures as well as clinical tutorial podcast. In our last year, the students don't have lectures, they just have clinical tutorials in the hospital. So with this we have now in the content management system. So we looked at where do the student access from. On campus 57%, off campus 43%. And perhaps if you haven't heard about our rural campus, we have in our faculty quite a strong emphasis on training for rural and underserved practice. These are the sites in the Western Cape that students can either do it online or offline. Some of the most remote sites, because the files are quite big, they prefer that we put it on a DVD for them. Okay, so this CMS is now providing extra opportunities for us. We're putting the study guides on, so the students are not going to get the study guides anymore. There's a place for the students to put on their own content. And then we also, what was the last thing I remember? Okay, yeah, we are migrating all the lectures, lecture notes from the Gerga docs, which is the old box that was sitting in electronic box. But we said to the lectures, we're not migrating your slides, your lectures, if you don't update it. So we hopefully will have a lot of the old things drop off. So then we did a more formal evaluation at the end of last year. We did send a questionnaire to all the students, and we did focus group discussions, each year. And I'll just share with you one or two findings. This is the year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 we combined. It's more the clinical years. And the bars here is if you had access to one resource of studying, which would you choose? And I'll come to something that will make Bertie's heart either jump or sink. So own notes, class handouts. Grey is lecturer PowerPoint slides, textbooks, podcasts, and internet. So if you look at the class handouts, you know, those notes that Bertie bought from the pretty girl. Almost very high here, and then the lecturer PowerPoint slides. That's very high in the more preclinical years. Podcast also quite high, going up to that's year 3, 4, but very little in the year 5, 6. Now remember, year 5, 6 students at the moment didn't have podcast when they went through these years. But what was interesting for us is this yellow bar in the clinical years that now they go back to the textbooks. That maybe. We asked them, did the podcast improve your marks? And if you look, once again, this is year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Strongly agree and agrees, this blue bar and the orange bar. See that almost across all the years they said it improved their mark. So this is just very briefly the themes from the qualitative evaluation. And these two themes actually quite astounding. A fresh way of learning. The previous speaker talked about creating new learning spaces. This was what we found as an almost unintended outcome. They said that the podcast support classroom learning, it's not for Bertie not to go to class, because the podcast support the class, it's not in the place of that. And then two smaller themes of the role of the lecture provides ease of mind. I'm just going to give you quotes just on the first theme. Because this was really wonderful to read. Let's go to the colored, and then all of a sudden I was doing visual and auditory learning, and it's like a part of my brain maybe just lit up. It was very helpful in the hospital setting as well. You can move around with it. Some say while they were drawing blood from the patient, they played the podcast over so that they could see what it was about. When I started using podcasts, I started being more comfortable with kind of non-traditional study methods. We thought they all are because they're young. And then finally, it was useful to watch it beforehand and then go to the class and engage a bit more. What does that sound like? That's right. Hopefully a classroom. So I was also asked to look into this crystal ball. In terms of challenges, the challenges for us was interesting, again, to our plenary speaker, the lecturer's resistance in terms of technical, so we got the students to take care of that. IP was a big thing. The first week in January, I got an email from the coordinator said there's a lecturer in anatomy who got absolutely upset because the students put something about the anatomy lecture on Facebook. And I said, but that's wonderful. That means they are in class in the first week of January. So IP we had to sort out. There was a big thing around that. OER is still, in South Africa, well, in my opinion, where I work, it's still not as easy. People still hold on to their perhaps rather old-fashioned hold on to their content. So what we are doing, we've select certain modules where the lecturers are more keen to that. They give authorization. And we are now working together with our MEPI partners in Africa to giving them access to the podcast. The hardware and software wasn't that difficult. The hardware, the software, we had to, that's the mopping up of the blood. We had to buy the software as the university software. At that stage, couldn't do what we wanted to do. Luckily now you pay the license for us and you've taken it over. That's wonderful. So critical success factors. For us, I think the biggest thing was this enthusiastic student uptake. We didn't think the students would be so happy about it, so mad about it. So there's no way we can stop it anymore. Leadership supportive of change, partnership with the students are taking responsibility in making these things go. Keen local e-team leader, and then this thing called creative tenacity, finding ways around obstacles. I guess being first on the scene, you have to find ways around obstacles. And never give up. Key champion lecturers, so some guys that go for it, you always have the front runners and the back runners. And then the external grant money. You actually need a little bit of money, helps with the innovation. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have had the university, would have had the funds to. But now it's not that costly. Now that okay, lastly, impact. We're starting to uncovering evidence that this is changing our students' learning behavior, which is quite exciting for the pedagogy amongst us. I think we can unpack that a little bit more. We, through this, saw that there's a lot of things happening in the faculty. We formed a coordinating committee. We developed and implemented an e-learning strategy for the faculty. We're doing quite a bit of capacity building in ICT, and we formed regional collaborations. In future, we hope that there would be no more resistance to ICT innovations. We would like to broaden our partnership with the student body even more. We have this kind of opens the path for new technologies, and we are in the process of installing a BYOD system. We invited the main campus IT people 2 weeks ago there. You guys were also a little bit skeptical first. So we're first on the scene mopping up the blood at the moment, but we hope to take BYOD into medical education into Africa now. Going green, of course, by cutting all the papers, and then we hope that this will change the teaching practice. Students' learning is changing, but will it change our teaching practices? So finally, this is just a slide of the people that's currently looking at our CMS and our collaborations, if it's useful for that. Remember, it's very contextual. And just a final comment from one of the students in the focus group. It is a fantastic thing when a university makes steps to get with it with the century we are living in. They are making education mobile now, because if education does not get mobile, the universities will stay there. I thought I'll frame that and send that to the director or something. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Marietjie. I think you should, yes. That's a good idea. I'm going to hand over now to our last speaker of the panel, Professor Cecelia Christersson from Malmö University. She's the Deputy Vice Chancellor. Thank you much.
Thank you so much for being here. I will start out with thanking the Swedish Foundation for International Cooperation in Research and Higher Education that made it possible that we could do this project called the Global Classroom, which is based upon a program we've had in Malmö University for 15 years called Communication for Development that you heard of yesterday. And it's an exciting adventure we're going to do. We're going to see how we can together explore how students in our classrooms, being in Canada, being in Stellenbosch, and being in Australia, can come together and actually cooperatively learn from global perspectives and local solutions, hopefully come together to improve and make their learning more of a high quality. I will refer to the speaker here that put me in a sort of a shock. Thank you for doing that. I will start out with saying that transformation is painful. So if you do not acknowledge that transformation is painful, I think we have a lot more to do here. I'm here from Malmö University, who started about 2 years ago into a strategic process. What really does our university do? Are we the traditional university? No, we are not. We want to make change. We want actually to make a global change. And we also want to have our students become change makers when they graduate from our university. And that's nothing that we can do by ourselves. We need help from our friends. So that's why I think starting out with the project Global Classroom is one step in that direction. What I'm holding here is also something that made us change quite a bit. Here is all information we can probably get access to related to information. It's also a lot of knowledge in this one machine. But it's also showing us what universities needs to do even more, and maybe more in a different way, is to bring our students to work with understanding. So we're now moving from the knowledge society to an understanding society. And that puts the universities in a very sharp situation. How do we do that? How do we help our students to become change agents to change society for the good, for the benefit? Well, what we found out in Malmö was painful. The first pain that came was how do we change our way of teaching? How do we change teachers' way upon looking upon the role that they have? Traditionally, as we've seen here before, one person standing here in front of everyone and students listening. So even here, seeing you where you are is painful for me. I wanted to have you much more in cooperation with what we're doing here. But it's 15 minutes, so the pain will go away. However, we need to have I will give you 4 remedies that we in Malmö believe that can be supportive in educational health for future. One thing is, of course, that students are our resource. To look upon learning process and having our students as knowledge cooperative producers of knowledge is very important. How do we help students handling information, structure knowledge, and make it useful as understanding? That is a challenge that we have to address. That means also that teachers have to change. We have to come to off our comfort zone. And how do we do that? How do we challenge ourselves to make ourselves change in the process? Earlier, we talked about graduates' attributes. It's not only to have subjects knowledge. It is how you can use tools to change what you would like to see as a better society. These have to be incorporated in our learning outcomes. These have to be also expressed so students know, and also students' former employers knows what the students really bring with them. And I thought this morning was really excellent to see all the good examples from the teachers here, where you had blogs that were open to former employers, could be a part of the learning process, making students aware, what do I have to focus on? So that is also an important thing. How do teachers redesign learning processes where students are creating knowledge together? How do we get everything to become cooperative, collaborative? And I think that's where the technology can help us a lot more. So technology can transform if it is changing the way and the different tasks that we have done previously to make new tasks being more accessible for collaborative knowledge. Technology can also make us look upon the metacognitive process. How do students really reflect? Because the understanding will not come only by knowing things by heart, but actually to show that you are transferring knowledge to understanding. It's also very, I was so impressed by that teachers here take the stand of actually making research out of their teaching processes. So we don't only see what we're doing as good examples, but we try to follow up and see how is it actually driving the understanding process. So the metacognitive process is important, and I think that's what technology can help us a lot. In Malmö, we had quite a problem with technology. It was hard to get access for internet, so we found also one remedy was to have zero friction. How do we make knowledge give us zero friction? That means that everything that is underneath the interface where the students and the teachers are should be very sort of without any problem. And that means that technology has to fix that for us. The teachers and students are not the ones that are going to struggle with that didn't work once, and if it doesn't work immediately, I don't think you're interested in going there anymore. The fourth, which I think is also something that the global classroom was an eye-opener, and that is how do we actually become open and how do we share? I think you mentioned here that most teachers want to have their own rights for everything they do. But knowledge is actually about sharing, and knowledge becomes more if you share. And our students need to find out ways of how they, through sharing, also become more knowledgeable. And I think management, which I represent here today, needs to also be ready to test different things, different methodologies. And we definitely have to be prepared that things can go wrong. There will be mistakes along the line here. But I think without mistakes, we don't even make changes, really. So we talked about good examples, show good examples, and I agree good examples are very good, but I think we need to follow up and understand why the good examples are good. That means that we need to do research. And I think actually one way for the management is support teachers as well as researchers, but make teachers do the research to actually show the evidence for what will work. So we have to be learners together. We have to be able to see that the learning society needs that we open up universities. And we do it for free. I mean, we have different systems in the world how we provide education. They're not for free. You pay taxes or you pay tuitions. But one thing is, what should we do with all the knowledge that we have? And I think the idea of the learning society, which is outside university, which is actually every human being's right of knowing and become curious and creative and innovative, is actually the role that universities should take. I think I stopped there.
I just want to make sure, Andrew, you're still there?
Yes, I hope so.
It seems like Andrew.
Can you hear me?
There. I can hear you quite clearly. Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to take some questions now from the floor. Oscar, you first in line. Please go ahead.
Well, I'm going to seize the opportunity here since Antoinette and Helmi have as they have done with the invited participants from Microsoft and Google, so forth. And now, Cecelia, since you just now announced that you wanted to support research on why the good examples are good, I think that's a very good idea. But could you develop a little more? What kind of research you're thinking about, and what kind of commitment you're ready to?
You try to do this here in South Africa. We do that home in Malmö. No, I will try to exercise this because I think it is important. Most traditional research, and I'm a researcher, I'm a dentist, and I'm in surface chemistry, and I come from medicine. So of course the traditional way of doing research is to do a continuous collecting of data. And I think it's very important on where you collect the data. So if we want to really, and I think in this morning, how do we really see where the outcome of the learning incentives, where are they? And I think we need to follow our students both through the system, but also do research on after they graduate. Because if we're going to now stay on the line that you're going to be a change maker, what do our students do after they graduate? So there is a continuous responsibility. So I think one model is to actually understand what the students' knowledge that they graduate with, the attributes contribute to change of society. I hear that it sounds like a utopia, but I really think there's very little done around following through specific learning procedures and seeing the outcome of the individual. And of course, it's also hard to do the evidence connect to something. But I think that is one effective way of doing it. I also think it's important to bring into different scenarios to research the outcome of learning incentives.
Andrew, do you have any views on actually integrating research and learning and teaching in that way?
Well, as you know, Antoinette, we've been integrating research into what we call knowledge-mediated learning processes or technology-mediated learning processes for a number of years now, and the PhD school putting that right in the centre of the support organisation, putting the researchers, the support, and the teachers in development together has been instrumental in creating the type of dynamic attitudes that we've been wanting to create in amongst university staff. So certainly we need research. We need to find out what works and what doesn't work, of course. But research in the university is also a matter of implementing a learning process throughout the university, a systematic learning process, and that's what we've been trying to do, and it's been fairly successful so far.
Thanks, Andrew. Cecelia, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to add also, because of technology, we are able, that I said briefly before, be able to do learning analytics. So you could actually tag things that students do and follow it up. And I think that's a research potential that I think is very, very interesting future-wise.
Thank you, Marita. Your side, anything?
Yeah, just perhaps to say that one is a big focus of our teaching and learning at our faculty is what works, why does it work? You can call it research evaluation. What I just demonstrated here is a relatively simple study. The third leg we will do soon is an e-survey to lecturers. We're also involved in a 5-year longitudinal study about the effects of a rural clinical school, and what, in exactly what Cecelia said, following up afterwards. And we do see evidence that the transformative learning spaces that they had the privilege of being at or in is still making a difference in the way that they approach their contribution to the community.
Excellent. Many thanks for that question. Oscar, any other questions from the floor? Yes, Deirdre.
Hello, my name is Mr. Villiers. I just wanted to know, you spoke about the students who sit in front of the class, the students who sit at the back of the class. And I always feel that the students are always hardworking, irrespective of the method you throw at them or the platform you throw at them, they'll kind of remain hardworking. So I just want to know a bit more about the backbenchers and how did your different methods affect the studying or the participation of the backbenchers? Because those are really the students you're really trying to target to come to class or to take part in the participation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that question. We found, not to our surprise, that 2% of the respondents said they never attend class. Doesn't matter what you do, they won't attend class. They are also the ones who watch the most podcasts, because exactly what Bertie said. I mean, one lecture is interesting, the rest are pretty boring. And they say that's why one of the themes with the role of the lecturer, if the lecturer really embraces the technology, then they will even go to more class. So just in terms of how it's changed the learning behavior of the backbenchers, you get the good ones, the Woofsian. What is a Woofsian in English? Head boy, head girl. They will always be in class. Then you get the so-called backbenchers. They won't always be in class. But what they are saying, what this has brought to them, was ease of mind, not necessarily peace of mind, but ease of mind. So if they had to go and play that rugby match and they couldn't be in class, they could go to the podcast if they were sick or if they. And mainly it has created a new type of learning for them, which is making it fun. They actually say it's fun to study medicine. Okay, that's nice.
Any other comments from Cecelia or from Andrew?
Yes, I'd just like to say a few words. I'd just like to say a few words about that, about backbenchers. In collaborative groups of 6 or 8 online, there are no backbenchers. They just don't exist. You are really in the centre of attention, both from the group and from the teacher or lecturer that's with you there. This is perhaps one of the most efficient ways of collaborating, is working in these small groups. So the problem of the non-attentive student is just not there.
Thanks, Andrew. Cecelia.
I will just comment a little about how you can work with the metacognitive, coming from a problem-based curriculum where we are definitely working in small group, like you say, Andrew. you could focus on students elaborating on their knowledge by the language, and also reflecting on where are we in, where do I know I have the knowledge and where do I actually put an hypothesis. So today, this morning, where you are working on almost like a research way of finding your understanding, to make that very clear in your learning process, I think that will also benefit quite a bit. And you do it better with your mates than you do it with the teacher, really. So the teacher should be more a facilitator, more of an architect in creating the learning environment and where the students are supposed to circulate for the learning.
Thanks, Cecelia. One more question before we go to tea time. Somebody from the health profession.
Thank you very much. I'm a pediatric surgeon, so I'm in the surgical fields. Most of my time, more than 80% of my time, is service delivery, day and night, weekends. How, I would like to hear a comment from both of you, since you come from a medical field as well. How can you support us in a sense that we're not left behind, that we're part and parcel of these developments? Because it's time consuming, it requires energy, it requires innovative ideas, and most of our energy is being put into service delivery.
I'm not really sure that I understand the question, but I think for students, for instance, in medical or professional education, to be exposed very early in the program to what they're actually going to do. And there should be, as we heard before, a very authentic learning. And I hope I can address. Could you try to put the question a little bit more?
What I'm trying to explain is that in South Africa particularly, but I think everywhere else as well, within the surgical field, we particularly service driven. We have to deal with patients. It's a consultant, particularly in my field as a pediatric surgeon, it's a consultant-driven service delivery. So we have undergraduates and postgraduate students. And I'm sitting here because I have ideas how we can, for example, digitalize the theater room and globalize the theater room. But it requires energy and time, and most of our time, 80 hours a week at least of my time is in service delivery. So how can the university support us to come forward, to progress?
I think it's a really good question, because it depends on how many souls you want to save. I mean, do you want to work directly with your patients, or will you go through education where each student will continue to give and support the care? So I actually think for a long run, I think it's important to bring in people with their specific professional competence in the team of the school, which you should do. You have academic teachers, but you also have professional teachers, and you also have researchers. And what the challenge, I think, in the future is where you have to combine the specialties from the academics, from the profession, from the researchers, so the students can see that it's a very complex understanding that you have to work for whatever profession you're going to take. So I think actually the challenge for us at the universities is actually to provide positions that are mixed, that we should be both researchers and professionals and so forth, and academics, and work in team, and also cross-disciplinary. I think we need to do that, and even globally. So we just do the same model, both geographically, academically, and professionally. That's a start.
Love to hear Marietjie's response as well.
Yes, I have very good, bad experience of that. Especially in a resource-constrained environment like we have. I agree with Cecelia, that's what. Ideally, I would like in your team to have an IT person, an instructional designer, and a teaching expert, an educationalist. So they could assist you in developing your materials in a good teaching way, education way, put it on instructional design. So, but we don't have that in South Africa. So what we are trying to do is to look at capacity building in terms of teaching and learning, terms of the pedagogies and ways that you can deal with things. We've also started recently with more capacity building in e-learning. JP developed an e-learning short course, which is part of our Masters of Health Professions Education. The third leg is that somebody mentioned, and I think it was Andrew that mentioned, is the support. They provide 12 to 14 hours IT support. And that is a crucial thing. If I'm trying to learn to do synchronous learning using the link platform and the thing doesn't work because I don't know how to work it, then I'm not going to use it. So that is really, I think, an institutional, thank you, Cecelia, not an institutional opportunity to provide us with our support. And I think some of JP's grey hairs also show that.
I'm not sure. I think I've got some of his as well. But Cecelia also referred to that as friction-free, right? We talked about that last week as well, and that's how the technology should be, friction-free. There shouldn't be any friction involved. It should happen in the ideal world. I don't know, Andrew, from your side, if you want to add anything.
Not on that one, I don't think, no.
Thanks,
Pass on that one.
Cecelia?
I would like to add one more thing, and I think we always come up to that when you do administer. What would you call admin A person? Is that what? Oh, I hate that. I hope I'm not being categorized as an admin A person. And I'm definitely, because I think one way of doing it is to have students involved. And I mean, if we can all the time when we're doing things involve students in the process, I think we leap compared to what we have done before. So that is also one thing that I would like to share.
Absolutely, and I think there's a few students here in the room today as well, so that's a message to you as well. With that, I would like to end off the session and convey my sincere thanks to Andrew. Thank you so much, Andrew, first of all, to Cecelia and to Ricky for participating in this panel. For once, the technology was friction-free. We could hear and see Andrew, and hopefully you could hear and see us as well. And Andrew, as a small token of our appreciation, now, Henny, you'll have to focus.
Yeah.
There's a bottle of wine for you. I'm going to hand it over to Stefan.
Oh, fantastic.
In his capable hands. And this is on camera and on YouTube that I did do this. So it needs to get to Sweden, to your office. Oh, it will be empty.
Thank you very much,
Antoinette. So, thank you very much, Stefan.
I'm looking forward to that, Stefan. You be careful.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Marietjie. Thanks, Cecelia.